Hello everyone and welcome to the Women's Banner Group special edition. We are celebrating International Women's Day and today we're going to be talking to women in trade unions. I'm really excited to have such a fantastic panel with us today. You'd never get this many amazing women all together in one room, so I'm really excited and thank you all so much for being here with us today. I think what we're going to start with, because there's a lot of us and a lot to get through, let's just start our introductions. So I'm going to go around the panel and ask everybody to tell us what their name is and which trade union they're from and what it is they do within that trade union. So we'll go around my little picture here and we'll start with Lisa. Hello Lisa, thank you for coming.
Hi Lauren, thank you for inviting us. I always love it when I get your invites. But my name's Lisa Collins and I work for USDAW, which is the Shop Workers Union. I've worked for USDAW now for 20 years come May, so obviously I was 5 when I joined, but yeah, I started off in what was called the TUC Organising Academy. So I was the class of 2001 and then sort of went on to work for USDAW. My main job is I represent over 5,000 people in the North East Division, and that includes people from Morrison's, Tesco's, Sainsbury's, the co-op, distribution, as well as the retail, and all across the board. So my job is to make sure that the people in there have the rights that they know, the representation that they know. I represent the tribunals if it does get to that stage, but I also do a lot of campaigning, which is what we're going to be talking about today, on different issues, including women's rights, because 61% of USDAW membership is women. So we do have a lot of sort of campaigns around women. So I'll pass it back over to you, Laura.
Thank you so much. Absolutely fantastic work. I can't wait to find out more about it. Next on my screen, we have the wonderful Kat. Hello, Kat. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, hi, everyone. So my name's Cray, and I'm a member of the RMT, the Rail Maritime and Transport Union, and I'm a health and safety rep on the Tube, on London Underground. And I'm what is called a tier 2 rep, and we've got all sorts of funny words across the trade union movement for that, but that means at the moment I'm currently on full-time release. So I've got my local area, which is normally about 11 tube stations, but at the moment, and it has been for a period of almost 3 years, it's all tube stations, and that's 4 of us that cover that for station staff. As you can imagine, the last year has been quite interesting in that regard. Also within the union, I'm an assistant branch secretary of NASUWT, and I'm a membership secretary. Membership secretary is something that I think is crucial that women are involved in. They're absolutely crucial to building ballot matrices, to taking strike action, but also the area of health and safety, where, I mean, in the rail industry, it is predominantly male. Our membership is not predominantly women. It's on average around the 20-24% mark nationally. That can change quite significantly geographically. But the amount of women that are health and safety reps is minuscule. And the amount of women that are senior reps, there are 88 senior reps covering Transport for London. 6 of them are women, and I'm one of them. So on that fiery note, I shall hand it back, Laura.
Fabulous. Yeah, I can see that we've still got a bit of work to do then there, haven't we? You've got your work cut out for you, I think. Okay, next we're going to move over to the fantastic Beth. Hello, Beth. Thank you so much for joining us. I know how busy you are, so it's really appreciated that you're here today.
Oh, no, thank you so much. And thanks to the Women's Banner Theatre, and this platform's brilliant. I'm sharing it with some fantastic sisters. Thank you so much on the eve of International Women's Day. I can't think of anything better to be doing. So I'm the regional secretary for the Northern TUC. For those of you who don't know, the Trade Union Congress represents around 5.5 million workers, and it has 48 trade unions who affiliate to our organisation. My role in that is to represent workers across the northeastern Cumbria. So that's about 330,000 members. 3 parts to the kind of work I do. I am a trade unionist. I've been a trade unionist all my kind of adult working life. The bit I love about my job the most is probably the bit where we get to build the capacity, recruit, train, support and develop trade union reps to be able to be equipped with the skills and the knowledge do the work in the workplace and represent their members. I love that bit. And also the bit of the job where we have to develop, maintain and function a range of democratic structures. So our women's group, health and safety group, disabilities group, LGBT+, international anti-racism and all of that. But my job is to serve those groups and our executive. But also, I think importantly is to make sure that the TUC is in the places in the region it needs to be strategically. So we are influencing and having conversations on the development of things like most recently COVID response plans, COVID economic response plans, for example, industrial strategies, Brexit policies and things like that, making sure that we're there in informing and giving the trade union view. But also actually our role in the patch is very much to respond to what comes out of Congress and what unions sort of want us to do from our regional conference as well. So it changes all the time depending on trade union priorities, but in a nutshell, that's what it is.
Brilliant. That's me. Remember to unmute yourself before you start speaking. Oh, that's fantastic. And again, just such important work and a very big job description for you there, Beth. Must keep you very busy. Right, who have we got next? We're going to move on to Rehana now. Where are you? There you are. Hello, thank you so much for being here with us today.
No, thank you so much. And just such a brilliant invite. And it's great to join a panel on a Sunday afternoon on the eve of International Women's Day. It's a fantastic way of pulling people together. My name's Rehana Azam. I'm National Secretary for GMB Trade Union. As most of you know, GMB is the third largest trade union, and public service membership is over half of my union's membership. So we're talking about over 300,000 members that we have responsibility for under public services. My industrial responsibility is local government and schools, and I don't need to tell you this, but tomorrow is a big day in the school calendar. Whilst the vast majority of our members have continued to work throughout the pandemic, there'll be a lot of people going into the schools tomorrow, so it's a big day for us. And as I say, I also negotiate for local government and schools, and we've just heard this week that the government are going to attack public sector workers once again. So what I'll be doing as National Secretary is coordinating our union response to that. And whilst we've been in the pandemic, I've also been coordinating the GMB's industrial response to the pandemic and really looking at why there's been a disproportionate impact on women workers or people from a Black, Asian, minority ethnic background, and how the government has let us down. And I've spent most of my pandemic, if it's not with our members on the front line, it's been really challenging the government and employers, and look forward to sharing some of my experience in the next hour with you all. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rehana. That is, the pandemic has really highlighted so many issues relating to women in the workplace, hasn't it? I'm really interested to learn more about that. Okay, next we'd like to move over to Deb, who's one of my colleagues. Thank you so much for coming, Deb.
Hello, hi, thanks for the invite. I just need to say I'm so pleased. I'm just slightly before Vonni because thinking, I hope she doesn't pinch my fingers, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pinch hers. But as usual, me and Vonni will, work together. We've been on plenty of marches and things together, and work really well, even though we're in sister unions. So my name's Deborah Eggleston. I am Assistant Secretary for the Durham Association for NASUWT, and I'm a caseworker there as well. So we have about 1,800 members in our branch, in our association, and we, obviously the majority of us are teachers, pretty much reflecting the national just going back to what Rehana said there about COVID, obviously teachers have been working have been either in schools. I was on school on rota in the first lockdown of the pandemic. I know a lot of colleagues were too. I've been teaching from home over the last, I think it feels like 3 years, but I think it's just knocking on 3 months. And you know, for a lot of women, that obviously means a lot of childcare issues, not solely for women, and that's again something, you know, I think that needs to be brought out of today. But yeah, my job has been supporting members through the pandemic, beyond, and certainly getting back into classrooms and seeing how we can do that safely and sensibly.
Brilliant. And I know you have all put countless hours of work into that, and what, you know, sifting through risk assessments and making sure that it is safe to go back in. And I know there's been a lot of issue around teachers not wanting to go back. Actually, they're desperate to, just safely.
Yeah, I mean, we don't see it, you know. I'm there at the front, really wanting to be back. I've wanted to never be away. And again, that's similar to all teachers, really. It's just the fact that, one, we want to be safe, but even when there was the discussion about the campaign, Vaccinate to Educate, I think that's really important that frontline workers are given priority. However, my overriding concern is how schools are the hub of a community, and that community spread comes from those children coming in and out, and certainly in primary, where there's going to be no lateral flow testing, then you know, it's going to go unnoticed again, I think, until we start seeing the patterns rising.
Yeah, unfortunately, you might be right on that one, Deb. Okay, last but not least, the amazing Vonni Hardman. Thank you so much. Again, Vonni, I feel like I see you on these Zoom chats all too often, and I never get bored of you.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Laura. It's really good to be invited. Yeah, Deb did steal quite a lot of my figures there. No, I'm only joking, you didn't. So basically, I'm from the National Education Union, and we represent all education staff. I'm a primary supply teacher, so I've experienced this last lockdown in a different way, more the poor way, the extreme, you know, the kind of very small amounts of furlough way. But I also am a member of Durham National Education Union, and I'm the LGBT plus district officer, and I'm also a member of the National Organising Forum for LGBT, for our NAU LGBT plus network. Which means that although I'm not directly in the classroom, I'm an ex-school rep from when I was in the classroom, but now I'm kind of more involved in organising. So I'm kind of on lots of subcommittees and organising teams and things like that, especially locally. And I'm sure later on we'll be talking about the sort of things that we've been getting up to. Obviously, through COVID, we've been trying to work to keep our members safe and to keep our community safe. And I totally second everything that Deb said there about it's not about educators not wanting to be in school. And I'm sure Rehana will say the same about her members who are education staff. It's about doing it safely, because even as belatedly our Prime Minister did admit that schools were vectors of transmission in January, we've known that for quite some time. You just need to look at the data, and when the peaks come, which is every time they shoehorn lots of little people back into a classroom, you know, we need to like protect our communities, and kind of we're fighting for a safe return for children into school, and a safe return for not just our staff, but also our children, their parents, their grandparents, because, you know, especially in primary, which is my area, you know, there is no lateral flow testing, which I know I've got my lateral flow test downstairs, because obviously I'm a supply teacher and I'm going to have to take some work at some point. So I have to do that. And yes, it may tell me if I've got it, but it certainly won't tell me if I haven't got it. It's kind of, there's that query around that. But yeah, we do need to be working safely, and I'm not sure that the latest push from the government is safe. So I'm not going to get on my soapbox about that.
Plenty of time for soapboxes, don't worry. I mean, that's all really interesting. And, you know, the pandemic, I think, certainly has changed the landscape of trade unionism, especially for women. You know, you've all touched on really interesting topics there that I'm not going to get on my soapbox for. I'm simply here to chair. But what I'd really like to do is sort of go back in time a little bit with you, just to find out what it was that got you involved in the trade union movement. Was it something that was just a career choice? Was it something that spoke out to you? And also, why is it important for women to be involved in trade unionism? And I think we'll just go around again. Otherwise, Lisa's just going to be sitting there quietly for far too long. And we really want to hear from you, Lisa. So we'll start with you.
Thanks. And anyone that knows us, I'm not very quiet for very long, am I? So, but no, look at Beth nodding there. But no, I think, like as I touched on before, I started my journey on the TUC Organising Academy. So for people who don't know much about the TUC Organising Academy, it was created back in 1997 to do what we're talking about. It's to get people involved in trade unions that weren't normally involved. So now I'm going to sort of disclose my age, but I was only 21 when I sort of went for that, because I was a young woman. It was what the TUC was sort of looking for. They were looking for more women. They were looking for more BAME members. They were looking for people who weren't the stereotypical trade union official, because back then it was the middle-aged white man was the stereotypical trade union official. But that's changed. I mean, in my organisation, I would say there's a lot of really strong women that are in high positions now in the trade union movement, because retail workers, the majority are women. So why don't we have strong women being their voice? That's the main sort of thing. I actually originally got involved in the trade union, not because I had sort of loads of trade union roots, although my granddad, who passed away before I was born, was on the executive of the T&G, which is obviously Unite now, so there is union blood in us. But I basically was taught and brought up to just look after people who couldn't have a voice for themselves. So when I became a rep in Macro, anyone that knows Macro, that's where I started. When I came a rep there, it was just because the young workers didn't have a voice. It was more that than the actual history of trade unions that got us involved. And me being a gobby 21-year-old, the union rep at the time was like, right, you'll be perfect type thing. So that's what got us involved. And I was very sort of involved in the youth movement at the time. I would love to say I'm still involved in the youth movement now, but I think I'd get kicked out. But I am still sort of very much involved in that. I'm also the Equalities Officer for the North East for USDAW, so I do get very much involved in the women's movement as well. And it gives us a passion to sort of try and involve women in the movement, because there's so many barriers to stop a woman getting involved. Things like childcare, because I know Deb's touched on it before, saying it isn't just women, but the lioness share sometimes does go to the woman, as to say. So that's normally when I get reps involved and train and develop them, that's one of the key stumbling blocks to get somebody involved, because they do have to make sure where's the childcare coming from, the work-life balance side of things. So I think I'm really passionate about getting women involved, and I've got a lot of sort of strong women in as my representatives who are strong women in the workplace, and sometimes it's quite male dominant in the management. So to stand up as a woman to say, no, I'm not going to do that, when sometimes the male dominant is, well, no, you have to. It's good to inspire sort of people to come forward. So I think that's what sort of got me involved, and that's what gives me the passion going forward, is all the strong women around us that you do see in the movement.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and it does really comes across with everything you do. Every time we have a conversation, you can see you've still got that passion about you of wanting to make a difference. Also, I've seen you on the dance floor. You could be in a youth group, don't worry. Okay, so if we can move on to Kat, if you would please let us know about why you got involved and why you think it's important for women to be involved in trade unionism.
I'm definitely not good on the dance floor though, but I'm willing to try. So, I mean, the reason I got really involved in the meat and bones of a branch, beyond, I know you don't cross a picket line, I know you never vote Tory, I know you sign up to the union when you join the railway, and that's what I did 15 years ago. But it was a strong woman that dragged me to a meeting. It was her advocacy, and she psyched me for it. She went, right, you're coming. She dragged me to it. She got me ready for what I was going to experience, which wasn't necessarily pleasant. And she owned that room, and she told those boys to shut up and to zip up and to let me speak. And it was her advocacy that got me involved. I was an activist for a decade, really, before I became a rep. I'm 41. I became a rep when I was 35, which means, and it's quite similar, I think, across various trade union movements. If your activism begins above the young members element of your union, you miss out on a few things that might have helped you out along the way. So it was absolutely the solidarity and advocacy of other women, and women like being real and honest and going, this and that one's going to say that, and they're going to take the out of you for that, and you've got to ignore that and do that, you know. And over time that develops, because that's not acceptable, but that honesty is invaluable. And to have a woman who is still one of my dearest friends in the world, to have her as an advocate is the reason why I'm now one of the very few full-time female reps on London Underground. And I sort of forget to say, tube workers have been going to work throughout this pandemic, and as we've been hearing about routes of transmission, Boris Johnson is yet to admit, and he's never gonna, the tube, that public transport full stop is a massive vector for infection. So with massive impacts. I've digressed back to COVID. I think my head has been bent that way so much for the past year, I can't help it. But the advocacy of strong women is what got me there.
That's amazing. I love a good strong woman. She sounds right up my street. And I think that there is, especially in trade unionism, like Lisa said, it has been very dominated by male presence. And so I think you're right, it's going to involve other women, empowering women to get involved and to not be sort of spoken down to by the men in the room. And I absolutely love that, and I can definitely see why you're involved. And thank you to that woman for getting you involved, because you're doing amazing work.
Maria Evans, you're a legend.
Yes, Maria, thank you. Okay, so now if we can, we're going to move over to Beth. And if you could, I won't repeat myself, you've got the questions. I'm excited to hear what you're involved.
Laura, it's really good to hear people's stories. I mean, mine's sort of very similar as well, in that, I was elected a union rep when I was just about turning 20, and I worked in a call centre to pay for my way through college. I grew up in a very sort of working class family, and it would probably be defined as sort of in-work poverty really now. That the definition of probably like being brought up predominantly by a single mom, to be honest, in the UK anyway. And when I was working, I was studying business at college, and I was actually learning about HR functions at the time. So something happened at work where, a group of us had been employed, and basically the employer wasn't fulfilling their contractual obligations on bonus payments, and we were working our asses off. And I started saying, this isn't right, this is our contract, they're not fulfilling it. We were unionised, we were union members, but before I knew it, I was asked to be the union rep, because people on the floor had said, well, actually, you're articulating yourself way better than the union rep is. He's just sort of like, he's there, but he's not listening. Will you be our rep? So then he kind of started listening. And then I kind of became a rep, and, represented that group of workers on that issue, and then represented more workers, more individual cases started coming my way, and then I was starting to get released. Then I wasn't doing the job I was employed to do anymore, and I was pretty much on kind of doing full-time union duties, which I absolutely loved, because my union at the time was MSF, which amalgamated into AWU, now is in part of the Unite family, I think. But they invested in us as young reps. We got the training and support we needed. We were able to organise young workers and build that branch, and it was absolutely brilliant. And I joined the TUC in 2003 as an administrator, and then developed into a project worker, a development worker, a regional coordinator for Union Learn, and then regional secretary for the Trade Union Congress. And that is down to lifelong learning. I'm really passionate advocate of lifelong learning and the investment and the time. I never had a chance to go to university. I would never have been able to afford to go to university. So, you know, to work and study in an area that I loved, you've got to soak it up. And it's, you know, for me, it's about, you know, women in leadership in these positions is brilliant, and we've got to have more of it, but we've got to be able to deliver. It's not tokenism, it's about delivering for the people that we represent, and you've got to believe in what you're doing. And I've grown up always being driven by social fairness and justice and representing people from underrepresented groups, because ultimately I fall into a few of those categories, and so do my family who actually live abroad, in Lebanon, for example, but also the working class communities that I come from. So it's about making sure that you just use every opportunity you have to use your voice to influence where you can, and that's basically where I came from. But what I would say is, though, now look at us on this panel, amazing. Look at Lisa, start off as you know, in the organising academy, and is now in our executive committee, which is brilliant. Again, there's another example of a woman in that role who can deliver on what she's set out to do, and she does that in abundance. And I'm dead excited to work with you on our executive. So, you know, I know you're joining us again this year. But we are becoming increasingly a movement led by women, and that's really good. But we've got a long way to go, and we've got to make sure we've got women in all roles and all levels within the union movement. And it's a symbolic relationship for me, because, you know, women need unions, and unions need women, and the stronger we are, you know, the more we can win for women. Yeah, that's it from me, Laura. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Absolutely right. I feel like we could cut that little bit out and just have that as an advert for trade unions right there. Absolutely. I mean, I think you touched on there about listening. I feel like women have a much bigger capacity to listen, and I think that is one of the strengths they have within trade unions. And also I love the fact that you were able to start at the grassroots and work your way up through a union. There needs to be a lot of that. There needs to be opportunity for professional development and lifelong learning, like you say. And I know the TUC offers a lot of that. There's a lot of training courses and things available. We will be putting links out this week to all the trade unions who are represented here today, just so you can have a look at getting involved in a trade union, have a look at what they offer you. It is really important to be in a union, as these women are so aptly explaining. Okay, next, if it's okay, we are going to move over to Rehana. I'm really excited to hear how you got involved, and why you think it's important for women to be present in trade unions.
Thanks. And, you know, if you could just box that enthusiasm so far, you know, Beth and I, we met as trade union activists, and we've been lifelong friends ever since, really. And I just want to pick up on one of the points that Beth made is, you know, for example, in the GMB, half of the total membership are women, yet we don't reflect that in the leadership positions across our union. And we know that strong unions need strong women, and I know we have that in an absolute abundance, but that's still not enough, is it? We need to become more active, and that's why I think today's session is so important, because we've got to look and reflect our membership, don't we? And when I look at my own journey, I still live in the north. You know, I got a job in a factory in Newton Aycliffe, Claremont Garments. And I always remember clocking in at 6:20 that morning, and all the women huddled outside our manager's office. And I'm saying, well, what's going on here? And they said, oh, they're going to bring in a new payment system. They're going to hack our pay terms and conditions. And I said, well, what are we going to do about it? And they said, well, we don't want to go in and see him because we're a bit nervous about that. So me being the gobby person that I was back then, I still like to think I'm still that person, but grown up, a lot wiser. I said, well, look, I'll pop into the office. And I remember sitting across to the manager saying, well, what's going on? What's this payment 2,000? It was sort of like the mid-90s back then. Come back out, and I said to the women, right, we're going to have to fight this because they are going to hack away on our bonus arrangements and our pay terms and conditions. And I always remember the woman who said to me, you're going to have to become our union rep, Rehana. And I remember saying, what's a union rep? And another one saying to me, well, you'll have to become a member of the GMB. And I said, oh, what's the GMB? And somebody just literally put a membership form in my hand and said, there you go, fill that, sign it, you're our rep. And it was almost like in that moment, 20 odd years ago, it totally changed my life. And I think I've spent 20 years, I always think, on this amazing journey of experience of just the most phenomenal people that I've met. And I think it was Kat who said about, women investing in women. I had a fantastic union officer. She's like my union mum. I think we all have a union mum, don't we, in the trade union movement, Jackie Woodall. And I remember when she came to the factory and she said to me, right then, my dear, what are we going to do with you? And it was almost like she opened up every door possible. And I never looked back, and I became active in our young members because we were all young ones. I got active in our equalities movement. I did some fantastic work with the Northern TUC, got some fantastic experiences. And I remember being offered the opportunity to go to Haiti to organise for Grand Marnier control workers. And we really raised the pay terms and conditions of workers in Grand Marnier, and just the brilliant experiences that I've had. But I think all of that, that's why activism matters. The only way women are going to be pulled out of poverty, pay terms and conditions is through union activism. And whilst we've got 5.5 million workers still that belong to a trade union today, we've got our work cut out. And I think the pandemic is a real leveller now for us. We've seen the care sector, 90% of care workers are women, and they're paid less than £10 an hour. We have to change that. And the way we're going to change that is women becoming much more active. We don't need it handed down to us. What we need to do is collectively organise ourselves, build that solidarity and deliver for ourselves. And I think that's why union activism, for me personally, is really quite important, because I look at my journey from a factory floor to National Secretary of Public Services in the GMB. I've never got, I've got one GCSE. 20 odd years later, I've still only got one GCSE. But as Beth and others say, the union movement invested in my skills and they upskilled me, built my confidence. And today I'm on this session because I've got the confidence to do that. And I think that's what it's all about. Union activism changes your lives. So for everybody that's watching, get active in your union.
That's absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love this journey that everybody seems to have been on as well. It's clearly something that got hold of you, and you've worked through to get to where you are now. And I just think it's really special that we're in a position now where our education is based on how many grades you get, how many boxes get ticked and things like that. But you're showing that trade unionism really does sort of embody that education for real life people and working class people. And it's all about wanting to care about each other. And I just absolutely love it. And I really hope people watching today are getting a sense of that and understanding that, a trade union membership isn't just an insurance policy, it's something to be proud of as well. Anyway, I'll stop whinging on. Okay, so if we can move over to Deb next. I'm excited to hear all about your reasons for getting involved and also why you think it's important for women to be involved.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it probably won't come as any surprise to you that coming from a small town in the northeast of England, I came from trade union roots. My dad worked down the pit. My granddad worked in the railway works here in Shildon, and as did most of our family. So I was brought up, you know, one of the first memories I have is actually being on a rally protesting about the railway closures in the 80s. So I've always been steeped in trade unions, thankfully, because, you know, as I was growing up and I went to university, you know, I did my degree, and a lot of that was based on employment law and industrial relations. And having grown up always wanting to be a teacher, I found it really difficult when I left university, because there was actually a fork in the road there for me as I saw it. I could either become involved in the trade union movement as an employee, or I could, you know, pursue my lifelong, 21 years old, lifelong passion of being a teacher. So I decided to be a teacher. And it was in my first school that, again, like a couple of people have already said, someone said, "Oh, you will be a good union rep." And there was actually a position within the union in the school. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I moved school. There was already, you know, well-established reps in the schools after that. And it wasn't until I joined a school where there was collective action, and I ended up being quite a spokesperson again. I think, as you do, you know, you have your opinion, you need to articulate that opinion, your voice needs to be heard. And thankfully, you know, people within the executive at Durham and also the school rep said, you know, come on, just get involved in the union again, Deborah. Because in the meantime, I've been having kids and doing all of that. And I thought, you know what, I think I will. And again, you know, like Lisa had said, it's this investment in people, the NASUWT in particular, have sort of given me the training courses, the CPD, all of that has given me such a wealth of knowledge. You know, I mean, I did employment law, like I said, when I was at university, but that was 20 years ago. So, you know, that's changed dramatically since. And it's funny because Beth was talking about the TUC, obviously, and I've just recently done an employment law course with the TUC for free, and I found it amazingly hard work, again doing this balancing act. But I think that's what women are brilliant at. You know, we can hold all the plates pretty much well, and we'll find pockets of time to do things, and we'll just work things out. And again, I think that's why A, women are really important in trade unionism, and B, why women are just so important in the workplace, because we have these abilities to be able to multitask. And I know everyone sort of makes a joke about that, but if there is a will, there's a way, and we will find it often. So yeah, I feel like I've come round full circle really to what was meant to be for me all along, you know, right the way from being young and the family roots and everything. I did the teaching and came back round to trade unionism anyway, so it's ended up perfect. Serendipity.
Well, we're really over the moon to have you, Deb. You do wonderful work for the NASUWT. I like there as well, a few of you have actually picked up on this, that somebody asked you, somebody said you should be a rep. And I always find that women need to be asked more than men do. Men just go, I'm going to do this because I can. Women need that encouragement. And again, it's going back to what everybody's touched on. Women need to ask other women. They need to empower other women. And clearly that is the case in trade unionism as well. So everybody watching, keep that in mind. If you see somebody you think is a bit gobby or knows what they're talking about or isn't scared to speak up for themselves and other people, tell them to be a union rep. They'll be brilliant at it. Again, last but not least, Vonni, I'm excited to hear about what got you involved and why you think women are important in trade unions.
My backstory is quite similar to Deb's. I grew up in Concert on a council estate. My dad was a union rep in Shotley Bridge Hospital in the laundrette, and my granddad had been involved in the union as a minor. And it was always drilled into us, join a union, join a union, join a union. And I always wanted to be a teacher, always did. But unfortunately, I've got a slightly different lens from the rest. I don't know whether it's from the rest of you, but I've got a slightly different lens on it. I didn't feel able to, because I was quite politically aware. I knew what was going on in the world. My A levels were in like psychology and sociology, so I was I'd been, helped out at the local women's refuge and things like that. And my, Section 28 was in force. I'd grown up through Section 28 in school, and I didn't want to go into education. I was just coming to terms with the fact that I was an out gay woman. I didn't want to train to be a teacher and put that on hold at the time, although it was my dream job. It was what I wanted to do. So I did something else, and I ended up working in customer service, joined a union, became a manager, learned loads about employment law, as you do. And then I decided that corporate life wasn't for me, and I worked for a charity. Again, was always a member of my union. I worked for the Shaw Trust, helping adults with, I'm trying to think of what the correct term is now, because obviously political correct terms change about every 2 years. So at the time, it was like adults who'd suffered from long-term mental health conditions, and it was helping people back into the workplace. And I did that for a bit, and it was really rewarding. And I got involved with my local domestic violence charity because I'm really interested in that. So I've always been a community activist. I've always been. And then I was made redundant from there because our funding wasn't renewed. It was a pilot project. Now our funding wasn't renewed. So I thought, well, do you know what? Things are different now. I'm going to retrain. So I retrained to be a teacher. And as you do when you're a student, you join every union. And then someone from the then NUT said, in my NQT year, said, well, I'm going to my, I car shared with her. She said, well, I'm going to my branch meeting. Are you coming? Because we car share. I was like, yeah, why not? And I kind of got dragged in like that. Again, it was someone asking me, getting involved and realizing actually this is the union. I was an NQT. I was a member of about 3 different unions at the time, as you are. And that it was the NUT that kind of pulled me in. And then obviously we've merged with the ATL and become the NEU. And, they did that. And I was involved in early career teacher union training because they did the NUT really invested in us as kind of young activists. I was saying young, I was in my early 30s. Wasn't that young, but I was early career. And I think that's what it was. They put the young and early career together. So it gave me the opportunity, even though I was a little bit older, to get involved. And, I'm at the point now where I absolutely love what I do with the union. I was a school rep in a school because I'm not scared to say what I think. And I've experienced that collective action, and I'm passionate about building up the union at the grassroots, because that is, in your workplace, is where you can make the most difference. Mm-hmm. So although I'm not in a workplace now, and that is purely by choice, as well as doing supply, I run a community interest company which focuses on cross-curricular creative learning in the community for kids that maybe slip through the net. So that's what I choose to do, and then I do supply to kind of enable me to do that. So with the union things, it's kind of like I did a fantastic course right at the start of lockdown, which was about building engagement, and it was with unions from all over the world. So we had people from the Chicago Teachers Union and the LA Teachers Union on there about how you build that workplace stuff. And we're kind of like pushing that out through all of our NAU kind of things, and we're trying to build that collectivism at the grassroots, because that is where you can make a difference. Because we've got a situation, as Deb's already mentioned, well over 70% of our membership are women, and that is indicative of the workplace. Schools and things are predominantly female-led workplaces, and so what happens in that workplace does disproportionately affect women, and there's no way around it. It's like everything we do in the union is about, because we're such a massive, the sector is dominated by women employees. So we try and engage members. And I know during COVID, we've been very successful. I know in Durham, we've engaged, I can't remember the exact figures. I did have them written down, but it was on a piece of paper. So note to me, if you're asking me to do anything, make sure I write it in a book. So basically, we've got loads more reps, a lot of whom are women. We've got lots of health and safety and COVID. We're recruiting COVID reps who were just reps for COVID issues. And it's kind of all about empowering and engaging. We're also doing things in the community to build up links with families. Again, the society we're in, a few people have already said to it, and this is not a hard and fast rule, but generally, predominantly, women take on the bulk of the childcare, women take on the bulk of running the house. As I say, it's not true in all cases, because I know Laura is married to a man who does not do that. he takes on his share. So, what we do is we're doing things like we're running the Help a Child to Learn, which you might have seen, the national thing that the National Education Unions, but in Durham, we're actually running that locally as well. And we're kind of reach out, and everything we do, we try and communicate with parents to explain what we're doing. We've had many public meetings on Zoom about COVID where we've invited parents along, we've invited members of the community along, because I think as part of that organising, we need to sort of get the message across that everything we do as a union certainly, and I know it's the same for every union, is kind of affects other people as well. It doesn't just affect our members, it affects the community if you're working in a community serving kind of sector. Mm-hmm. So I think, it's kind of like important that women are involved. Absolutely, certainly in our union, we would push. When I first got active in the NUT, I'll be honest, I went along to my first, not district meeting, my district was quite balanced, but I went along to my first county-led, because it was different then, my first county meeting. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is all retired white men. And I remember thinking, is that because, and obviously teaching is, the workload in teaching is, and most of the is horrendous. I can't think of a better way to say it than horrendous. So you kind of like, you finish work and you go along to a union meeting. So people who have other responsibilities like childcare and things don't go to the meeting because it's straight after school. They go home to see their kids, or they go home to do what they've got to do, or they go to the supermarket to get the weekly shopping in. So I remember thinking, are these the only people who really want to be involved? Are these retired old men? But yeah, it's changed. It has thankfully changed. And Durham NAU is not like that at all. It is it's a good mix, probably with more gobby women than should be. We like to kind of discuss and debate and talk. Yeah. But it's good because you do feel like, join your union, you will feel like your voice is listened to. Mm-hmm. You will feel like your opinion matters. And you will feel like you can make a difference, because at the end of the day, that's all we want to do. And I think I can probably say that for all of us on this call. We all just want to make a positive difference. Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely brilliant, Vonni. Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think the word you were looking for teachers' workload is oppressive. that's what I would call it. But yeah, you're right. Childcare absolutely falls disproportionately on women. But my husband has stopped my son coming in that door at least 4 times during the course of this conversation.
We know Paul's an exception to the rule. It's okay.
I can't believe we've already been talking for 50 minutes. We've only got 10 minutes to squeeze a little bit more, as much information out as we can, because I know you've all got amazing things to talk about, amazing things to say. So if it's okay with you, we'll do 2 more laps. They'll have to be quick and you'll have to just be succinct, but you're all amazing and I know that you can do that. Initially, what I want to find out is what campaigns have you been involved in? Are there any campaigns that you've been involved in that you feel have predominantly been for women, or you've seen sort of an impact on the rights for women? I know, Vonni, you just saying there that, your workforce is predominantly women, so pretty much everything. But I'm really interested to know what sort of issues women are facing in the workplace and what you've been involved in to tackle that. And we'll go around the same way. Lisa.
Thanks, Laura. I'll be very brief. So just to do it very headline, USDAW, as we say, have got a lot of women in our union. So we do have a whole range. And I think I sent you some links, hopefully we can put in the chat. So one of our main ones are Safe Journeys to Work. So again, it's not just women that do that, but mainly it's about women in dark mornings, late nights, going back and forth. So we do have that campaign running. We have Sexual Harassment Call It Out, which we actually ran before the hashtag #MeToo. It was the year before the hashtag #MeToo came about. USDAW ran a survey just to see if it was still alive and kicking, as to say. And we had workshops. I was part of a sort of listening session with 20 USDAW activists to say, is sexual harassment still happening out there? And it came out loud and clear that yes, it is, whether it be from just a sort of simple, all right, sweetheart comment to actually groping and not going into too much detail because we are on a Sunday afternoon, but it is still out there. So we started a campaign around sexual harassment, Call It Out. And our national officers worked very closely with our agreements to make sure policies were put in place to ensure women did have that voice to go out if they did feel, because sexual harassment is very much about a power situation, isn't it? And sometimes, unfortunately, it is normally a man that's in a management position that sexually harassed young women who are just coming into work, the people who are in vulnerable situations. So as we've all mentioned, being in unions, you have that voice, or you have that safe zone to go to speak out about it. So obviously we still have that running. Unfortunately, I would say we still have that running, because I would have hoped we had knocked it out by now, but it's still ongoing. So we do that. We've got a lot of work going on around domestic violence. I know I've been working with Kim McGuinness, who's the PCC in the area, around getting domestic violence champions in the workplace. And I know she's been working with other unions around that, about getting somebody who can look for the signs of domestic violence. So things like when you're sitting in absence review meetings, and this person who has had perfect absence for the past sort of 2-3 years all of a sudden's got a lot of sporadic absence, it's looking deeper into that and sort of looking at those cases. So again, it's women helping women. I will put the caveat on there that domestic violence does affect men as well, but obviously what we're saying is over 86% statistically is women, so that's why we're sort of looking at that way. We have our Freedom from Fear campaign, which is against basically everyone but women in the workplace, and making sure when you are going into the shops that they are respecting the retail workers and things like that. And I have spoke very quickly there, but just one thing I did want to mention when I was sort of listening to everyone, because this is a fantastic group, I have to say, you're all dead inspiring. But one thing I do want to say is the biggest campaign about getting women active and sort of giving them the confidence to come forward and do sort of what we do is that you have to overcome barriers. I mean, I've overcome barriers in my job of, one, I sort of took over a big distribution centre which had about 600 workers, mainly men workers, and the union busting in there was, have you heard the new official's a woman? Do you really want to join the union if the official's a woman? And it was like, hold on a second, are we living in the 1950s here? I mean, we went on to actually get a 50 pence pay rise on top of everything else, because this particular company, and I'll not mention it, had brought their job to Teesside because they wanted low wages. So we nearly went on strike, but ended up getting a massive pay rise, which was led by me as a woman official, do you know what I mean? So that then put the sort of voice of those people down. But other things that we sort of come across, and I know my sister's on here, you might as well, but I've run like an Aldi campaign where we're outside Aldi with our flags, and I normally say to my group of reps, I'll go in, ask to speak to the manager and do that while you go and give the leaflets out and stuff. And the manager came out, and next to us was one of my organisers who is a middle-aged white man, and the manager talked to him, and I was like, I've just give you my card to say I'm the organiser of this campaign. But he just constantly spoke to him, and I thought, this is the type of thing that women are having to go through and have to overcome. And I think the biggest thing about this, and sort of talking to my sisters out there as well, is that we have to champion each other, and we have to say, you know what, that isn't going to put you down. And every single one of us on here has said the same. If we've got to champion other women to do that, I think that's the biggest campaign we have to take forward for women. And thank you.
Unbelievable, Lisa. You've done so many incredible things, but you're right. Unfortunately, misogyny still exists, still a thing, and we all feel it. It is probably one of the biggest barriers that we face. Well done for doing everything you do. It's amazing. I've put some links in the chat to your campaigns. I think what I'll do is I'll compile a list of campaigns and join us pages from everybody who's been on today, and get that out on across all of our platforms as well, just so not everybody can get to the chat and things, and we'll get all that out for you because it's really important. Okay, so if we can move on to Kat, I know you've been really busy in your union. Has there been anything that's predominantly impacted women?
Do you mean COVID specific, or
just in general? I realise that COVID is a hot topic at the minute, and it is. Yeah.
I'm a health and safety rep. I'm obsessed. No, I mean, our union, as with others, we have equalities committees, and we have a National Women's Advisory Committee, and our union, as with others, is broken up into regions, and those regions are broken up into branches, and those regions and those branches have women's officers as well, but on a branch level, there's sporadic cover. London Transport Region, we've had a great women's officer, and we've just inherited a new one, Charlie, and we've had women's meetups as well that we've done broadly nationally, but London is a good centre point for a lot of people that work on the railway. But obviously that's something that we would want to see not just be London specific. And those gatherings have been a real lifeblood for me. We meet in the embankment, and you can bring your own bottle, bring your own picnic, or drop by, not drink anything on your way to a night shift, finishing an early shift. It was those really informal meetings of women that were really inspiring. But I also want to speak about people who aren't mouthy, and as much as I'm an introvert, and there is a room and place for introverts, and I want to encourage that. And it's really hard because now I'm an introvert who's now thinking about telling other people about being an introvert. And if you're an introvert right now, you feel my pain. But there is a place for all of our shapes and sizes, and you know, I'm quite happily lost in my head, and that's suited risk assessments and legislation and footnotes, and looking at vulnerable workers, and looking at what maternity rights exist, and specifically with COVID and for women, actually a lot of women realise their existing maternity policy and the existing law gives them far more protection than they thought it did, or that their employer is freely letting them know about. So shy, not necessarily mouthy, introverted women are welcome to.
Oh, brilliant. I love that. Okay, we are running short on time, so I'm going to try and get around everybody. Sorry to speed you up. I know that you've all been doing work with women and have had some important campaigns. So if we can whip round and just have a few sentences about that, and then we're going to have to come to a close eventually, but even though I could sit here all day and talk to you. Beth, I know the TUC do absolutely loads of work focusing on women's activism. Is there anything that stands out for you that you guys have been doing?
Well, one of the things I would say I was probably most proud of in the region in my role is running not one but two women in leadership programs. So that brought overall, there was about 60 women who took part in both of those over a period of sort of 2 or 3 years we ran them. And, you know, they went on to be either union reps or, you know, members who became reps, or reps who decided to go for, you know, councillor positions, or things like, you know, working with schools and things like that, you know, as governors and stuff, and or getting involved in activities in their communities, or being more active in the TUC's kind of general groups and fora. So it did have an impact on the representation and their confidence to take part in that. I've got loads more, Laura, but obviously I know we're stretched for time. But that's one of the best ones I've worked with in the last few years.
That's brilliant. And if you do want to send us any information on any other campaigns that you've got going, we'll absolutely send that across our networks. You know, we're building our networks quite big. Socialist Think Tank are obviously helping us stream this as well. So we'll piggyback on their membership as well. So yeah, anything you want to send us to get out, we will do that, because these are all really important messages.
Thank you.
Rehana, what have you got to share with us? What's the GMB been focusing on?
I think I'm going to be really quick here because there's loads, but I think the key thing is this. Something I've been really proud about is how we use the equality impact assessments. We've just won a judicial review when the government was trying to cut exit payments of local government workers, and we used the equality or the inequality angle of that. We demonstrated that there was going to be a disproportionate impact on women and people of disability, etc. And we won that, and the government curtailed on that. Secondly, we have to keep busting the pay freeze. You know, we've busted it once, we've got to do it again. And you know, the only way we're going to get power in the workplaces, aside from organising them, is getting women lifted out of those low-paid jobs, and that's through the pay packet. And I think there's been some brilliant campaigns around period poverty, around free school meals, you know, around equal pay, the gender pay gap. But the bottom line is this: we've got to do it industrially. You know, women need the dignity in their wage packets to go out and deliver for their families, and you know, get what they need for their families. And I think that's the way we do it. So there's tons of campaigns, but I know we're running short now, so I'm going to shut up there.
Again, Rehana, what I'd say is please do send us anything you want sharing. It's really important to get people on board with these campaigns. Deb, is there anything that the NASUWT have been involved in recently that might predominantly impact women?
There was a couple of motions went through at last year's conference, a national conference, one for period dignity in schools. So not just for obviously teachers there, but predominantly for students, because the research indicates that actually a lot of absence of teenage girls can be related to menopause, which is a crying shame. So thankfully, a big campaign there that's been running for quite a while and working from what I can see on the ground, which is fabulous. And also another one that went through last year was trying to get menopause toolkits into all schools as well, so that management are aware of some of the adjustments that women need when they're going through the menopause, and you know, some of the requirements of, you know, the whole period of their life, if you like. So and as well, we have an excellent equalities committee here in the Northeast, headed up by Candy Miller. So she does a great amount of work with their women's groups.
Absolutely brilliant. Really, really good motions, those two as well. They were fantastic. Yeah. I'm so pleased they passed. And Vonni, last but not least, is anything I know you sort of started this conversation by saying that your members are, you know, quite highly populated by women.
I think what I'll do, because I'm looking at, like, we've done, again, I'll share some links with you, Laura, because I don't want to, about different campaigns that are running. But what I want to talk about is a little bit about the organising work I'm doing within the LGBT plus community within the union, which I think is, you know, it's absolutely vital. You know, you're not just talking about women, you're talking about women who are part of at least one other community. So you're talking about, you know, that intersectionality and things like that. So what we do is we try and engage and it's not easy. Even now there's a hangover and a legacy of Section 28 within education. You know, lots of teachers don't want to talk about it. It's kind of like taboo. Some you know, especially teachers who've trained during that time or taught during that time. And kind of, it's about, you know, lifting those voices up. And we've just done, you know, last year I helped to organise, I was on the steering committee for our conference, which was the biggest sectoral conference online for the whole union, which we were very proud of, which was the LGBT plus conference. And we engaged a load of new activists, got more new reps from that, which again is what it's all about. It's about empowering people to find their voices. And again, with our workforce being well over 2/3 women. So, you know, it goes along that it's not just, you know, it's predominantly affecting women there. And again, we've just done some work around LGBT plus History Month, where across, you know, I was very very proud of the work that we've done in the region. We held a successful, what we call Teach Meet, which is about empowering teachers and, you know, giving teachers a chance to discuss the professional pedagogy and bring that inclusion into their classrooms, which again affects predominantly everybody. And certainly just want to shout out there, you know, it's like kind of our LGBT plus executive member, you know, at the moment is a trans woman called Casey DeGroot, and she's brilliant for empowering women. You know, our organising forum, because of the way our union set up, is predominantly women. We have 2 out of every 3 seats as women's seats. And again, we try and make sure our voices are heard. And it's about pushing that kind of, yes, we're women, but we're also women. Some people are Black women, some people are gay women, some people are Black and gay women and disabled women. And it's about all of that working together and raising those voices up to try and, you know, pushing that equality focus is something I'm absolutely passionate about.
Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic, Vonni. Yeah, the intersectionality of womanhood is really important and something that definitely needs to be involved in the trade union movement. Okay, last thing. What I want to do is quickly nip round.
On
That's
your
my
bed
dog. Yeah,
is a genius.
Penny always gets in these shows. If you watch anything on Social Think Tank, she always turns up at the end for a cuddle. What I want to do just quickly is go around and just 1 or 2 sentences from everybody, a little call to action from yourselves about getting involved in a union for women. Whatever you want to say, your finishing lines, as it were. So Lisa.
Yeah, all I want to say is please just come forward if you are wanting to get active and things like that. But one of the main messages, and there's loads of memes on Facebook about this, is please straighten your sister's crown. Don't judge other women for what decisions they make. And there's loads of different decisions out there different women make. We need to start empowering each other. And as I say, straighten your sister's crown rather than diss it. So that's in everything in life, whether it be trade unionism or just everyday thing. We just need to really empower each other.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. Kat.
Yeah, and it's all about solidarity, but transversely, that means not doing emotional labour for other people. And we do far too much of that, especially women. And I think especially in the trade union movement. So owning your agency, loving yourself, self-worth, seeking community that enriches that, solidarity, not doing emotional labour, and that the magic and crucial art of agitating.
Fabulous. I'm going to make these into t-shirts. Beth.
Yeah, there's so much to say, but if anyone's watching who is a union member but isn't active in their union, get in touch with their union officer or their branch and find out how they can be. Or if you're not in a union, get yourself onto TUC Union Finder and find out which union is the union for you to join. If you are a member, become a rep. If you are a rep and want to kind of take advantage of progression, look on the TUC's website under training. There's so much there that you can soak up, so many good ideas and campaigns for you to deliver in your workplace, just to keep the union voice active and going and alive. And if you are a union rep and the region, have a look at the TUC Northern page and sign up there to kind of get information about all our campaigns, our groups, our forums, because ultimately we're only as strong as our kind of trade union membership, and we need you more than ever now, actually. This is going to be it's going to be a tough 12 months and beyond, and we need to have strong trade unions to be able to do that.
So much. Rehana.
I'm going to be dead quick. Every moment is an organising opportunity. So if you're not a trade union member, join one, as Beth's already said. Every person is a potential activist. That's how we got into where we've got to. The most powerful card in our handbags, purses, in your telephone wallet is your union card. Take it out. Look at the number. If you're not a rep, become a rep. Become active in our union. And I do believe this, because my glass is always half full. Every minute is a chance to change the world, and we need change. And the pandemic has shown just why we need change. So just let's step up, build the solidarity, love what Lisa said, fix those crowns without telling anybody it was ever fixed, they're broken in the first place. And Laura, I love your dog because I have one myself exactly the same. I'll share you the picture a little bit later, but let's just keep building that solidarity, sisters.
Oh, thank you so much. That's incredible. Deb.
Yeah, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You know, there is actually a place for everyone in a trade union. You know, despite how active you feel comfortable with being, or how new to the movement you are, your trade union will find a place for you, and you will find comfort in your trade union and others who work within it. So, you know, do get involved. You don't have to be a militant, you know, mouthy person in order to actually have an effect and have an opinion. So yeah, get involved, because it is an excellent movement to be involved in. And I think as well, you know, sort of trade movements, trade unions do help society move in the right way as well. You know, if the workplace engages correctly, then surely society feels the benefits of that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Deb. Okay, last but not least, once again, Vonni.
I just want to remind anyone who's watching, and you know, that every single employment right that we have in the workplace has come from the trade union, from the work of the trade union movement historically. Every single thing that we have is because trade unionists in the past have fought for it. So we are standing on the shoulders of those people, and we can be the next great movement forward. You know, at the moment, COVID has absolutely shown the fault lines in our capitalist society. It's absolutely opened them up. And I might sound a little bit militant lefty here, but that's fine. I can deal with that label. You know, it's shown the fault lines in the system. The money goes up, it doesn't come back in. You know, it goes out to all these billionaire companies, global corporations. It doesn't get fed back into the system. We have many members of our unions are using food banks. These aren't people these aren't people who aren't working. We have many working members in all of our unions who are relying on food banks. Please do join a union, fight to make this a better place, fight against this injustice. Even if it's just a little bit you can do, every little tiny bit does help. Please get involved.
Thank you so much. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you, each and every one of you. I'm so lucky that you were all able to be here today. My kids are about to come through that door. I don't know if you can hear. It's been an incredible session. I've learned loads. I hope everybody who's been watching this has appreciated what you've had to say. I'm sure they will. It's been fantastic. What a panel, what a group of women to get together and talk about such an important issue. There are hundreds and thousands of incredible women who can do this. Please join a union. Find which you can find it on the TUC, find which union you belong to, join it, get active, make a difference, not only in your workplace, but in society. And thanks again to everybody. And we will put a package together of all the links. And just once again, thank you so much. And we hope to work with you again soon.
Thank you for chairing, Laura. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.